All right, so the scope of our training today is going to be basically as if you're a new to Quoteworks, how to kind of the general overview of the program and how to use it as far as pulling in your contact, building up your quote, and then getting it out to your customer. Um, so you guys don't have a lot of crazy integrations or anything like that. It just looks like you're working with Act and you have Quote Valet. So we'll incorporate all of that together. Now, in order to kind of go through this training, I do need to have somebody share their screens. So who would be the best person to work off of computer-wise as far as has both Quoteworks and Act installed?
Well, we all have like a remote desktop.
I mean, I'd have to jump onto my RDB, like my VPN. Right now, I'm just on my local machine here, so I can.
That's all right. Give me a second. I can do it. I'm almost there.
No worries. If you can do it, Shannon, I'll go ahead and make you presenter, and I'm going to request keyboard and mouse control.
Okay.
Don't do it, Shannon.
So do we have any, I mean, I have like a general flow that I can tend to go to, just a general agenda. But do y'all have any topics that y'all wanted to focus on specifically, or do you want to just kind of go through just the standard how to use Quoteworks?
For me,
Go Vic.
It's the how to clean up the quotes afterwards, in terms of when a quote cuts in, either they don't want it. So the best way of cleaning that up, that's towards the end. So that's
okay. Okay, yeah. Shannon, do you mind only sharing one screen? Just on the recording, it's going to look really weird with both screens side by side. It's kind of hard to see.
Okay, let's see. Can you
should be the option to adjust it.
Share main monitor.
There we go.
Right, let me see if I can get rid of a couple things here. Hold on.
No worries.
All right, so I have Act, and then I've got Quoteworks. Yeah, and I'm Ryan, I am like totally new to using this. I did get James gave me an overview last week. I've created a couple quotes and tried to update my preferences and stuff like that because I have somebody else's account that I'm using. But I'm the newbie. They both Vic and Sylvia have used this before, so.
Okay. All right, I got you.
So if you focus on Shannon's questions more than ours, I just have to use, but it's good to sit through it again and watch how you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we got 2 hours to go through everything. So essentially, it's going to be a little bit, but I'm going to go through all of the tabs and all the buttons and menus as far as what you can do. So that's going to be a little bit in depth, just jumping into all of that. And then pretty much, towards the end is going to be the actual putting everything together and putting Quoteworks in action. So
okay. If you want to take note of this as well, how do we clean up the SKUs? We have a lot of old SKUs in there that we need to clean up, and also templates, how you create the templates, that type of thing. So.
Okay, that as far as the templates go, that's a simple one that I can get to, and I will get to that as part of the general agenda.
Okay.
For cleaning up products, if we're able to do that at the end, because that's a little bit outside of the scope of just the general usage, that's kind of more of an admin function. I'll get to that as best as I can. But that one's not too bad. It's just product editing. So jumping right into it, as you see right here, this is the screen that you get when you first open Quoteworks. By default, you're going to be on the Document Items tab, just as if you want to start building and working on a brand new quote. So the Document Items tab is going to be what would be your main workbook. This is where you're dragging in all of your items, editing your descriptions and prices, essentially structuring your quote with all of your line items and whatever other lines that you would add to that. This is what's going to end up into your PDF as the final, final result. I'll go a little bit more in depth on this when we get just more to the workflow, but that's just kind of just generally overview. This is your workbook. The Sold To, Shipped To tab, this is going to be your customer information. There are 3 fields here. You have the Sold To, which is your actual customer. This is what's going to be linked back to ACT. So whatever contact you have in here is going to be who you actually link it to the ACT opportunity. Your Shipped To fields are going to be who you're sending the products to. A lot of this is going to be for purchasing, but as far as like any physical hardware, if you guys include that on your PDFs, as far as where these things are going, that's what the ship to would be. And then the bill to, I don't know exactly how you guys have your QuickBooks set up, but typically the bill to would be where the invoice is going to. All of these fields can be entirely the same. In fact, you actually have a little copy button right here. So if you were to pull in a contact from here and you say copy from Sold To, on either of these fields, it'll just copy that over. The reason that you would have a bill to and a sold to is because you might not actually send your invoice to the contact that you're making the quote for. They may have like an accounts receivable or just an accounting designee that would get the invoice, and that's the person that would go in the bill to. The Sale Info tab is going to be your document information. This is mostly going to be like tax information and any kind of terms and terms and conditions set directly to the quote. A lot of these fields are just fields that you're displaying to the customer on your PDF. But as far as fields that actually have any kind of calculation to them, like your doc status, your sales rep, the document number, those are directly hard coded into the quote. The doc date is going to be pretty much when you started, but that can always be sort of changed. That's sort of going to be the conception date, and then you have your expiration date, which automatically fills in based on a setting that you guys have. So I think that's 30 days, the default expiration date. So you don't ever have to set that; it'll always be set for you unless you change it on your own. Down here, you do have your tax rate. It looks like this was actually renamed, so you guys are using the HST up there in Canada. Normally we just have the 1, but since you guys have the basically the split, the hybrid sales tax or the GST only, you have the 2 tax rates right here. So you can set these as you need to. All you gotta do is just press this little button here to select a rate. If you need to enter something new, you can just hit new, and it'll just add like a new field where you can change your tax rate. So I don't know how often your tax rates adjust, but this is where you go to adjust that for the quote. On the Notes tab, these are just more fields. These are large text format fields. I don't know if you pull these in on your PDF, and we'll get a little bit more into what pulls into your PDF on your typical quotes. But if you use any of these fields on any of your layouts, they're just 32,000 character fields that you can pull in wherever you want on the PDF. So typically the introduction would be at the top of the quote and the closing notes would be at the bottom of the quote. And the custom tab right here, this is another thing. So we don't, there are some programs where if you need an additional field for any purpose at all, just the default fields don't convey all the information you need to. You can't add a field into Quotewerks. Technically, all of these fields already exist and they're just blank until you use them. So these are what we call header fields. So if you think about in the back end of the database, you have 2 sections of a quote. You have the headers, which is going to be 1 line with a bunch of columns in it, and these are all columns are essentially that pull into the PDF if you were to use them. And then each line has its own, like in the Document Items tab in the back end, each of a line has its own table, and they're all in their own separate table with their own fields. So there's a bunch of custom fields on the items as well. So if you were to be designing a quote and just need to pull in additional information in there that says everything on the Sales Info tab, just doesn't really cut it. Maybe you want to put an account number, a building name, something like that. Those are just examples of what you would use any of these custom fields for. You have custom text fields. We have 5 different custom number fields if you're going to be doing a custom formula, or there's just 2 custom date fields if there's any additional dates that you need to add to your proposal. All of these text fields are 255 character limits, and then the memo fields as well as the note fields are 32,000. So if you needed to add an additional blurb that you would just type into the document onto your proposal, then this is where you would enter that information here. A little bit more on the advanced side. You typically wouldn't be using that unless essentially everybody in the company would be using like a custom field or something like that. So. The links tab, excuse me. The links tab is going to be if you need to attach any sort of documents or files to the quote for your customer to see, something that only this customer you would be working with, like if you make a scope of work, or if there's any product sheets specifically on this quote that you want to just add in from somewhere else, you can add in either a PDF or a Word document and then have that merge directly into the same PDF file as your main proposal. All you got to do is just click this little blue plus sign here, and then you can just select the file to add to it. And whatever you add into the Link Resources tab on the Links tab here, when you go to build your PDF and pull in your actual quote layout and build and design the proposal, everything that's on here will also be in the links tab available for you to pull into the order of your PDF over here. So do you have any questions just on the tabs before I move on? I'm going to kind of go up the row here to the ribbons and everything.
No, but can you turn my camera off, please?
I think you actually need to do that.
Here, I'll move the mouse.
Yeah, down at the bottom.
Right, and I'm gonna
there you go.
Smaller. Okay.
There you go. Yeah, no worries.
All right, there you go.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I'll get into more in depth of this as we move along, because there's a lot more to cover. Like the document items tab has a lot of different things that you can do on it. So I'm going to skip going over that for now. We'll jump right into the menus. So all of these buttons up here actually have a menu option associated with them. So instead of just explaining these buttons right here, I'm just going to go through the menus and I'll tell you this one has a button, this one doesn't, this one does, and so on. So the file menu, you have new, create a new document, open, you can open an existing document. Close will close out the existing document you're on without closing Quotewerks. And then save will be how you actually save your document to both the Quotewerks and then creating an opportunity and saving it to Act. As you see, file new and open, those have all of these have buttons associated with them. So instead of clicking file, you can just click these buttons right here. Now, if you go up to the file new section, because I know that we were asking about quote templates, and I'll get to that in just 2 seconds here. If you click file, ooh, are you touching the mouse? It's kind of like jumping away from me here. There we go. So if you have a template that you've saved, you can click the file new button, and by default, I mean, you usually pull up to here, but this is where you go to select a template to start a quote from. So a quote template is just a starting point with a bunch of line items. Like I'll just pull in something random here. All it is just a pre-built quote to start from. So, without having to pull in and type in a bunch of other information, if you were to quote something like this, more than once, and you don't want to have to rebuild it every time that you quote it, you start from there and then adjust it as you need to. And you'll see this is a new unsaved document. So it's not like you need to save as or anything like that. You just start from a template, and it'll be a brand new quote, brand new blank quote, essentially, with all those line items pulled in. So save as template is going to be where you build up that structure of a quote, and whenever you're ready to save it as a new template, you just hit the save as template and name it whatever you need to, and then it'll be available in that screen when you go to file new. You can also get to that window just by clicking this button right here, the little arrow button, and you'll see actually the most recent templates. I think it's the most recent 8 templates that you've used, or you can just hit select template and it'll bring you to the window right here.
So if you pull up an existing template and edit a few things on it, can you just save it as a new or different template then?
You may, yes.
Okay.
If you're trying to edit a template that already exists without saving a new template, then you'll go to the open window and then go to your template screen in there. And from here, you'll actually be updating the template itself. So if we just open this one, if you look up here, there's a few places that'll say that you're editing the actual template itself. One is big gray letters says quote template rather than just quote. That indicates you're working on a template, not an actual quote. Up here it says template and the document number. So a document number is 3 sections. You have your prefix, so you guys are keystones, so you have KEY. The next letter right here is T, so T for template, Q for quote, O for order, and I for invoice. And then the actual document number follows that. So just kind of one thing to be aware of when you're working with document templates. A very common thing is people will go to the open window and they'll just build a quote without noticing that they're actually editing the quote template when they go back to start a new quote from that template, they'll see, why is all this information here? This is supposed to be a new quote. Well, it's because you edited the template. So just one thing to be aware of. Whenever you're trying to start a new quote from a template, just use new, select template, or if it's recent, select it there. All right, save as next revision corresponds with the revision button up here. So a document revision is essentially you're going to be starting with just a normal document, and let's say you want to make some changes, but you don't necessarily want to either create a new document or you don't want to lose the original version of that document, and you want to kind of keep everything linked together, like to the same opportunity and everything. You would do save as revision, and what it'll do is it won't fully increment the document number. You'll actually get a -01 added to it. So just every time you hit save as new revision, as you add new versions of that quote, that number will increase. And as long as you're not clicking because there'll be a checkbox. Like if we just I'm just going to open a random quote just so I can show you the very first screen you get. So if we click save as revision, as long as you don't click this box right here, then you're going to keep a paper trail of all of the document revisions. And you can see all of those revisions if you go to view document revisions. All of the previous ones will show up here, and then if you're like in the middle of all the revisions, you'll see next revision.
Okay, so I have a question. So let's say on that quote, just go back to that one for a sec.
Oh, okay.
So let's say the client calls in and says, hey, I don't want the keystroke designer. Like what I've been doing, I've just been deleting it, just highlighting it and deleting it. Is that fine, or do you have to go through the revision?
Yeah. No, that's fine. You can. It's just if you want to keep like the original quote, and then just maybe if you're wanting to keep the original quote, say this is what they originally did. Like even go to the notes tab. You can use dynamic notes and say something like, this whatever this document number is was the original quote. Then do save as revision and then make your changes. That way you have the original quote would be 18285, and then you have 18285-01. And that's after the changes that they made.
Okay.
You don't have to do that. I'm just saying if you did, that's the way to do it.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Victor, I asked him about that specifically. He said that they didn't use revision, but he does exactly what you were doing, deleting the line and just saving it. So we don't have an original quote, if you will, of what it looked like when we started, because it keeps overwriting the same quote.
Okay, no, I mean, for some situations, it would be helpful, though, if somebody comes back.
No, it would be.
Yeah, okay, so thank you. I think I'll use revisions from now. Thanks.
Yeah, there you go. See, you're learning something, even though you've been using it for a little while.
Okay, so Ryan, I do have a question then about that, because if it's
Absolutely.
creating a new one, when it creates the opportunity in ACT, does it still tie it to the new quote that was generated and doesn't create a separate opportunity?
Correct. Yeah. So what it'll do is when you save it as revision, it will do the 1825-01, and then when you're ready to actually make your changes and save it to ACT, then you'll just hit save, and then just make sure you have the create or update sales opportunity checked. If that box is checked, then instead of that opportunity being currently associated with the original, it'll then be associated with the -01.
Okay.
Basically, it's the opportunity is going to be associated with the most recent document that was saved to it.
Okay.
Moving down the list, file rename is the way that you just rename your document. So you wouldn't actually go to save. You can't change it here. You just do file rename. Insert document is pretty useful when you're working on kind of a big quote and you want to, instead of opening up another quote, copying all the lines from it and pasting it in, you can just use the file insert document, find a document, or you can actually use templates too. Find that document and then just hit select, and what it'll do is it'll just drop it directly into your quote, just a faster way of doing a copy paste.
If we have a bundled template for our keystroke dash, keystroke alerts, keystroke designer, we could open that other template up and do that without having to type in the 3 different things. Okay.
Correct.
That's cool.
Yep. Yeah. So did you call it something? I mean, we can find it. I can show you.
Well, it was a template. It was something bundle. I don't remember what it was called, but contains.
If it exists.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. Yeah, because he's called it dash design alerts bundle, and I don't know if he actually.
I mean, you have a bunch of quotes that are actually with it, but I mean, it is not like a huge deal. I mean, you can just find like the template. Like here's one. So we just do select.
Yeah. Okay. That would save a lot of time right there for those types of things. Okay.
Yep. So it saves you from having to copy it over and then paste it in. You just do insert document, and actually, because it's an insert, so you'll notice this. You'll see insert, add, and append. Add and append do the same thing, where it just adds it to basically after the last line in your quote. Insert, anytime you see insert, whatever it's doing, it's going to put that line above whatever you have selected. So if we had this, our cursor right here, and we did insert, whatever we're inserting is going to go above this line versus just at the end of the document. Okay. And then file duplicate is going to be how you, like I mentioned earlier, if you want to just copy, like carbon copy a quote without, like basically starting a new document from a new quote. You're just copying everything over, and this is including like sold to, shipped to, stuff like that. Anything on these tabs, except it's not going to be linked to the opportunity. You're just creating a new quote with all of the same information. File delete is going to do exactly what it sounds like. It's going to delete the document from the Quotewerks database, and you'll also have the option to delete it from Quote Valet, which generally they does it both at the same time. File properties is going to show you sort of an audit trail on a document. So if we were to just open up this one, with file properties, it shows kind of an audit trail of different things that have happened as the document is saved. So file approve quote, I don't know if you guys are using document approvals. The short story of document approvals is a sales rep is not able to send out a quote to a customer or deliver a quote if it meets certain parameters that would be set without approval. So let's say if a document amount is over 15,000, for example, you can say, this sales rep cannot send that document unless they request approval from a manager. So this would be on the deliver window. That sales rep would see request approval, kind of like how you have submit for peer review here. They would hit request approval. It would go off to their manager. Manager would look at it, and then that's where they go to say, okay, this document is ready to send off to a customer. They approve it, and what that does is it'll lock the document to prevent any changes from being made, so that sales rep can then send it off to the customer. If they needed to make any changes after an approval, they would just unlock the document to make their changes, but that also removes the approval at the same time. So they just have to re-request approval. Convert to order is going to be essentially winning the quote. You'll see when you use Quote Ballet and your customer accepts it, it's going to prompt you, do you want to convert it to order? That's essentially closing out the quote and then creating a new order from it to move forward in the workflow. And then convert to invoice is just pretty much the same thing. Instead of moving it to an order, it moves it to an invoice if you're doing invoicing within Quotewerks. And then convert to lost sale. This is what you're going to want to use if you have a customer that chooses not to proceed with a quote. So if you're losing the sale, instead of just going to the sale info tab and then just saying lost in here, that doesn't quite close out everything like it needs to. You still need to close out things on Quote Ballet to tell Quote Ballet that the quote is lost, and you need to say it was lost in ACT as well. So when you do file convert to lost sale, it removes it from Quote Ballet, it loses it in Quotewerks, and it'll also close out the opportunity in ACT as lost. Print, email, deliver is the deliver button that I've clicked a few times here. It's just, this is where you go to build your PDF and then deliver it to the customer, whether it be through Quote Ballet, emailing, or if you want to save it as a PDF. If you're trying to save a PDF to ACT at any point, this is where you go to do that. You can just click Save as PDF, and hopefully, oh, it might have opened up on another, oh, there we go. So right here, if you check this button, you can save a PDF of the quote to ACT without sending it to the customer if you don't want to do that just yet. Otherwise, when you click email or when you upload to Quote Ballet, it'll automatically attach the PDF of the quote to the ACT opportunity when you do that. Import document. You're probably not going to use this too much. Essentially, if you have archive files that are not in your Quotewerks database, any flat file versions of a Quotewerks document, this is where you go to bring those in. Export to document transfer file. Again, not something that's commonly used. This is exporting this, whatever document you have open, or you can actually select a few different options there, to a flat file to be opened by another install of Quotewerks. If you're ever having issues, like a lot of times we actually use this in tech support, if a customer is having problems with a quote, something's not calculating right, something's blowing up, we'll ask you to send us a copy of the document, and that's where you go to do that. At the very end, a little wizard that you go through, there's an option to allow that document to be opened by another Quotewerks install that is not necessarily using the same licensing. By default, that's unchecked, but let's say for any reasons, since you guys are a Quotewerks reseller, if you wanted to send a document, like if you have like a good sample document for a customer that's demoing the product, you could do an export to document transfer file, and if you check that box, you can send the DTF to them, and they can open it up in their own version of Quotewerks. So it might actually be beneficial to you guys as a reseller of Quotewerks. And then right below here will be, I believe it goes, this is it, it goes up to 8 of your most recent documents. So just to prevent you from going to File, Open, and having to search for it again, you can just go right here to see your most recent 8 documents. And then login as another user is just switching exactly that, just switching users, and then exit will close Quotewerks. I'm not going to go over the edit menu just yet because everything in the edit menu is the exact same thing that is in here in the right click menu on the document items tab. So moving to the next menu, we have the view. So my summary dashboard, opportunities dashboard, and Quote Ballet dashboard. Not sure if you guys would be using the Quotewerks dashboards or not, since you already are using ACT. But this is kind of a way of keeping tabs on your Quotewerks documents. Just quotes expiring in 7 days or any notifications. This one probably wouldn't pop up too much because you don't really have anything that would. Over here in the opportunities dashboard is just kind of another, like your open quotes. and a little bit of information about quotes that you produced. You can also change the filters if you were a master rights user and see other users as well to see, kind of what, what is open, dollar amounts, things like that. But importantly, actually, is the Quote Valet dashboard. Since you are using Quote Valet, if for any reason you're not getting notifications, or if you accidentally delete an email notification, this is a backup for that. All of your Quote Valet notifications will show up here until you dismiss them. And then to look up more information about Quote Valet documents, you can go to the reporting tab and look into, if we were just say everything today, or see everything that everybody uploads. So here we go, customer activity that was done today. You can see, kind of keep tabs on all your Quote Valet documents that are out there. So view customize columns. So this is where you go to set up all the columns of the document items tab. You can rearrange them, hide ones that you don't need, rename them. Anything that you do rename is just the original name is going to be in parentheses here. These are all per user settings. So if you needed to change, basically copy your columns to another user, you just use the Apply To tab and either apply it to all users or to selected users here. And then, so we already covered document revisions, but view associated documents. So if you, do a file convert to order, this is where all of those documents will show up. So you'll see the quote, the order, and the invoice in this screen here. So the products menu, so the product lookup is the same thing. If you click the products button here, this will be where you're going to be pulling your products into Quotewerks. So you have all of your databases on the side here, and then your search criteria up at the top, and then your search results right down here. You just double click on something or click select and add, and that'll bring it into Quotewerks. So up at the top here, you also have a multiple database search. So if you're not sure exactly which one of these databases that the item you're looking for is in, then you can just select multiple database search, select your databases. You guys only have 3, and then just do, you can do a partial search with a contains, or however you want. Back over here, so we have required, optional, and substitute items. So this is really more of a setup. So a required item is basically when you, let's say you're selling, I know you guys are selling software, but let's say you're selling a table, but the part number that you have for the table is just the tabletop surface. Well, you need legs, chairs, you need bolts, all the kind of hardware to build that table. So the required items of that table surface would be the 4 legs, and then let's say all the hardware that it takes to screw that in, and those would all be itemized as required items. So if you have a single tabletop surface, but it requires 4 legs per 1 quantity tabletop surface, you would do, this requires 4. So when you pull that into the quote, you'll see, and I'm not going to edit on this one, but it's going to have some blank lines. So we'll just say, so this one tabletop requires 4 legs. What it's actually going to do in this button right here, I'll get into a little bit more than this, is it'll pull in saying that this one tabletop requires 4 legs. So whenever you increase the quantity of the tabletop, so let's say 3 tabletops, we want 3 tables, the quantities are linked based on that multiplier that you would have set when you're making the required items, and it'll automatically adjust the quantity of all the child items based on the multiplier. So it's really good for if you have, some lines that require additional items to be pulled in, just by doing that. So optional items and substitute items. So these are going to be more for you. It's just something that you would set up for your products. So when you pull them in, you'll actually see optional items that, let's say if you're working with your customer in real time as you're pulling things in, they may or may not want something that goes along with that as an option. That would be an optional item, and this is where you're going to set that up. Same thing with substitute items. If something is not available, what could be a substitute of that item? Set those up there. The configurator and bundles. So bundles are going to be pre-made groups of items. You guys already have a decent amount of bundles in here. It just saves you for having to look up all these individual items. And there are two kinds of bundles. There is a simple bundle and a grouped bundle. A simple bundle will just pull in the line items not grouped together or linked in any way. It's just a way to save you from having to search for multiple items and pull them in. A grouped bundle will pull everything in under a summary header or a group header, so that basically all the items below it, on the quote side, by default, it'll show the components that build something. So let's say a software package, Microsoft Office. You would have the one line that says Microsoft Office, and then below it, you would have Word, Excel, and so on. So the way that would look if you pulled in a group bundle, if we just make this a group, it'll actually look like this. I'll get into more in depth of this. So you're not actually going to show the price of each item. You're actually just going to show the main price of the entire bundle. So group bundle will just pull in a pre-made group just like that without you having to build it yourself. Now, configurator is kind of a tie off of the bundles. A configurator is where you go through and you actually customize a bundle just by going, it looks like you all already have one. So you would just go through this little wizard here and select different products as you go through sort of a tree branch. And then based on the choices you make in the configurator, builds that custom group, whether it can still be a simple or a grouped bundle, just based on the choices you make in the configurator, rather than just having everything is preset and this is just the bundle itself. So then the import wizard and set up product sources, those are really more on the admin side. Import wizard is what you would actually use to pull in a price sheet from a vendor, and then set up product sources is actually where you go to maintain your product databases. Just before we go on, just with these 4 menus, because I know I'm covering a lot, do we have any questions regarding the menus?
Just maybe you'll show us later, but how do you build like a group where it's 2 products, but they can only choose one, so it's an exclusive group? But are you covering that later?
I will cover that later. That's going to be optional items, especially tied into the Quote Valet integration. Once we get into the edit menu and we go into line attributes, I'll show you guys how to do that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. So tools, spell check, tool spelling, refresh with latest pricing or best pricing. So this would be if you have multiple vendors that carry the same product or multiple databases, that's where the best pricing would come from. If you did a pricing update on a product and one vendor has a product for less, you'll get better pricing and it'll change what vendor is coming from. Latest pricing. So whenever you do a price update in your actual product database, it does not touch any of your historical quotes. So you can have a price on like a quote that you made last week and then, change the price in the database moving forward for all, in the on that product. That product isn't going to change on that old quote. If you needed it to change on that old quote, then you would just go into tools and then refresh. And it really you have to select an item, tools, refresh with latest pricing, and it'll refresh with all the pricing with whatever you just changed it to in the database, as it is in the database here. The vendor field on the document items tab, unless you specified it directly on the item in the database, which we usually recommend to leave it blank in the database, will be the database that you actually pull it from. So the vendor is your product database. Go back to tools. So show item requirements, options, and substitutes. So like I said, this is where you go to set it up. This is where you go to see all of those options for the line that's selected. Compare prices between vendors. So this is up here, the compare button. If this product exists in multiple databases, then you can compare it. It only shows up in 2, actually. So if there are different prices to compare between, it just shows you kind of a nice little graph for that product here. Show customer product price history. So we can click that and just kind of show. So whatever product you have selected, it's going to go into your documents database and see all of the times that you quoted that product and who you quoted it to, when you quoted it, how much you quoted it for, and it'll even give you the document number and doc name so you can kind of reference it, so you can see the historical pricing that you've made for that product. Show product price history is going to be a little bit the same. So both for that customer and for the product. Well, this is just for that product itself, so you'll probably get a little bit more results here. So update cost, item cost in product database does exactly that. If you change the cost of the product on your quote and you press this button right here, it'll update the cost in the database without you having to go through and edit it. View item in database does just that. It's going to go to the product editor, so you don't have to search for it and click edit if you ever need to make any database changes to it. Find quoted item. So if you're trying, this one's really kind of more of a document search in a way. So it's really just looking for, you know, whatever field on a product, showing all the documents that basically this field equals that. Don't necessarily have to use this as much, because if you go to the open window, you actually have that right here as well, and you can search for documents based on more than one field. That's just kind of another way of getting to it. Export to QuickBooks. Not sure if you guys have a designated person who would be exporting to QuickBooks, but this is just bringing up the QuickBooks button here so you can export documents to estimates, invoices, or sales orders, whichever y'all do. Open export module. Mostly, unless you're using some sort of outside tool that can bring in XML files that you would generate from here, this is where you go to export quotes to XML files. Export items to Clipboard. If you were to just select all, it's going to export it to something that can be posted in tabular form to either like Sheets or Excel. But we also do have export items to Microsoft Excel to actually get it just directly out to Excel itself if you needed to do that. Purchasing. This is the purchasing module to create and manage POs. Once it loads, it's probably going to search for all of your items, and I probably shouldn't have clicked that. It's looking for all of the items that are ready to be exported to a purchase order now, because we're not on an order. Normally, if you're on an order, it'll look for that. Do y'all ever do purchase orders for anything?
No, we don't use purchase orders, or our customers don't either.
I didn't imagine. All right. We may have to restart Quotewerks. Oh, there we go. Perfect. All right, so we don't even need that. Customize menus. I'm not going to change much of that. It's more on the admin side. That will allow you to add additional menu options. Like if you want to add calculator to one of your menus, you can do something like that. Customize email templates. So when you use the deliver and then email, you can actually, looks like y'all have a good number of email templates. So this is where you go to set those up. This is also where you go if you ever needed to change your Quote Valet email. Whenever you go to upload a Quote Valet, this is where you go to get to that template if you ever need to change the verbiage here. Tools, My Preferences. So this is going to be your personal settings. This is where you go to enter your sales rep information, change your picture, your signature, change your email settings, views, change the way Quotewerks actually looks and feels, what to ignore in spelling. The miscellaneous tab has a lot of options that kind of change the behavior, your personal behavior of Quotewerks. And on the contact managers tab, this is where you go to put in your ACT login stuff. And then tools options are going to be the global settings of Quotewerks if you ever need, were to be editing anything for that. But anything you change here is going to change for everybody. So unless you know what you're doing in here, we don't recommend changing anything. So in the contacts menu, you have the Lookup Contact tab. So this is going to be the exact same thing as if you were on the Sold to, Ship to tab and click the magnifying glass. Also, if you click the Contacts button up here is another way of getting to the contact lookup. Now, one cool thing about using ACT is you actually have the option of, if you already have a contact pulled up in ACT, you can drop them into the quote right here just by clicking the little contact button. So since you have yourself search for in ACT, you can pull yourself directly in, and it'll link the quote to your contact record in ACT. Okay, and then the retrieve. So these two buttons are just these buttons right here. And then you probably wouldn't actually change anything else with those next options. Reports. So this is, if you were to ever run any management reports in Quotewerks, this is where you go to build and do that. A lot to kind of get into with that. Basically, it's doing reports on documents and items in Quotewerks. The utilities menu. For the scope of this is really more of an admin menu. You wouldn't really change hardly anything here. Yeah, the only thing that you maybe would go to is if you're managing, like if you guys do customer profiles or product profiles, as far as like, this kind of customer gets this kind of price, maybe changing things in here, as well as the cost modifier and price modifier right here. So if you click this little drop down box, if you need to change anything that's in here, if you guys do multiple markups or different kinds of selections for profit margins, this is where you go to edit those lists. Everything else I wouldn't really worry too much about. And help, this is also a good way to get to our help file. If you just press F1 or click the help button, this will take you to basically our product manual. A lot of good stuff in there. Technical support. This will take you to our support page. Easy way of getting to us if you get stuck on anything. It's got our phone number. It's got where to go as far as emailing us. We usually recommend just shooting us an email if it's not an urgent matter, but you can always call in. We're open 9 to 5 Eastern, Monday through Friday. There's our number right there. Okay. So before I move on to the document items tab with building quotes and stuff and all the line attributes and all that, do we have any questions on the other menus?
Nope, good for me.
Kind of see again?
I actually have a question. I'm not sure if you have mentioned it. Is it possible to rename an existing template? Like,
yeah, yes.
If
so
you have
to
already
do that,
saved.
Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Because I have a lot of template, but I misspell something. For example, just like I want to remove the example, like I want to add the premium next to pro example on the existing template.
So if we were to just select one of these just as example, so this is an already existing document. Just with the templates, the same thing as existing quotes. You just go to File, Rename, and then you can rename it here.
Okay.
And will that rename it for everybody? Like, let's say Sylvia
Correct.
wants to rename it. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, it's renaming the entire document. Since the quote template is technically a document, but
Can you do a save as if you want to leave it for Sylvia, but I want to name it something else? Can I do that?
For that, you would do a file duplicate and then save as template.
Perfect. Okay. Got it.
Yep. Anything
Thank
else?
you. But maybe later you will cover this because you're saying you will go through all the code that with all the feature here. Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. I just wanted to make sure that before we go on to that, it's a good little pause point. If there's any other menus, I mean, Shannon, do you have any other questions?
No, not right now. Thank you.
Okay, cool. All right. So the fun part is the document items tab as well as the edit menu. So working with your line items, the edit menu is going to be the right-click menu for the line items. Cut, copy, does exactly what it sounds like, just like in any other program. However, the copy and paste function is actually copying information from one line and then pasting it to another. If you're trying to copy an entire line and make another copy of that whole line, then you would either use insert paste or append paste. Insert paste is going to paste whatever you just copied above the line that you have selected. Append paste will add another copy of that line to the bottom of the quote. Paste special is a fun one. If you have information somewhere else in tabular form, either through, if you have like a CSV file, or if you just have something in Microsoft Excel, for example, and you want to copy and paste that into Quotewerks, well, the Paste Special wizard is how you would do that. You just go to start a new session, and then choose to either copy data from Clipboard or copy data from a file. Well, we don't have anything, so I can't really go too far through it. But basically, in the next screens, whatever you have copied, it'll read that, and then you just say what column goes where in Quotewerks, and then it'll paste it in to your Quotewerks document. Select all, does exactly that. Selects everything. Select special will allow you to select specific lines. Very useful if you're trying to make changes to multiple lines in a document, but not every single line, so you can select lines based on criteria. Now, once you do select certain lines, another thing that you can do if you're trying to make like multiple changes to a certain line, like change the item type of a bunch of different lines, would actually be the apply multi-line changes. So there's that button right there, or right-click apply multi-line changes. So let's say, I don't know, this line, and then this blank line. Change the, oh no, what do we have on screen? Change the vendor part number, or change the vendor, how about? Change it to test vendor. There you go. Just applies whatever changes you say to do to whatever lines you have selected. So that can work in tandem with the select special if you're trying to make like multiple changes without having to go through every single line and make those changes. It's also very useful for changing the tax code if you guys do use the multiple different tax codes. If something qualifies for PST only, or something was updated, certain lines were updated to be changed to, both PST and HST, then you would change like that. So right click, next on the list, find, just Control F, finding a certain, whatever, based on your criteria here, finding a line in the document, not necessarily selecting it. It's just, if you have like a really long document, it'll take you right to that line that you select. Edit product or service properties is the same thing as adding a formula line. So it's just, if you already have a blank line and you're wanting to kind of convert it to a formula, or if you right click, go to add formula. What a formula line is just a line where its unit price is calculated by a formula that you make. So let's say, I mean, for example, like custom labor or a certain fee is based on the retail value of a certain line. You would just do, let's say it's like 5%. So 5% of the extended price amount of the line item where the manufacturer part number is this. Or you go to the totaling side, then it can be adding up multiple lines and then multiplying by a percentage just based on whatever criteria you select here. And you can actually use not just the extended price, but to get an extended price based on the cost list, or if you use any of the custom number fields, you can actually do a formula based on that too. So change line type, exactly that, except we can't really do it with this one. That's generally going to be if you have like a comment line. So we just did add comment. I mean, a comment line is just something that can show up. Like a lot of times people have them like italicized or showing up a different way just to indicate that this line is just a comment line. Just regular line, no price assigned to it, but it's not quite a heading. You can change the line type, just right click and then change it like that. Change it to a product, heading, or a section header. Edit line attributes. So this is the fun one. I'll go ahead and I'm going to delete this line. So the first line attribute that we see is optional lines. So let's make some optional items. Okay, so I'm going to select both of these guys, right click, edit line attributes. So these lines are optional, means that the customer, they're on the quote, but they're not necessarily added to your grand total. Your customer has the option of, if you upload it to Quote Valet, it'll be a checkbox. So they check the box if they want it, leave it unchecked if they don't want it. We click OK here. So these lines are not added up in the total down here. And one thing to notice when you're on the Document Items tab is whatever line you have selected, you can actually see the line type down at the bottom here, and then its line attribute. So these lines are optional because it says optional right down here. We know that. We also know that these lines are optional and not selected because the price, as you can see, instead of being purple or gray, they're actually green. If it's gray, it just means that the price is hidden. So that up here in the group, we're displaying only the group price. And actually, let me go ahead. I'll get rid of these other ones here. Okay. So if you're trying to, if a line is actually optional, but you want to upsell it, so essentially have it pre-selected when you deliver this quote to the customer, all you got to do is just select the line, go right-click, edit line attributes, and then say is selected. And you'll see our price just changed right there. And now because it's purple, it's saying it's included in our total. And it even says down here that the option is selected. So now we get to another portion of optional items, which is exclusive groups. And this is what you were asking about earlier. So let's do this. So I'm going to insert a heading, and a heading line is just exactly like what it sounds. It's just a heading to a section. Now, there's two kinds of headings. There's a section header and then just a regular heading. The only difference between those two is a section header is kind of like a subtotal, but up at the top. So it has an extended price for all the lines below it until it hits another section header. So let's just, for this example, say we're going to do a warranties section. Typically, you would only get one warranty with whatever exclusive groups you're doing. So first option is no warranty. Next one is 2-year. And then the next one is a 5-year. Okay. So just random price, 20 bucks, and then 50 bucks. So to say that these are all optional items, but you must pick between one of these items, select them all and then right click, edit line attributes, or you can also hit Control R on your keyboard to quickly bring it up. Up here in the grid toolbar, this little A, letter A right here will also bring up line attributes. So first we're going to say these are optional items, and because you're going to be picking, they're mutually exclusive options, you're going to be picking, assigning them to a exclusive group. So for this one, we're going to call the group warranties. So now they're all optional items, and customer has to pick between one of them. So we want to upsell the 2-year warranty. So it's selected. So now when we upload this to Quote Valet, and you'll see this once I get to that point, the customer is going to have a radio buttons next to these lines right here. So they just select through one of them, and it'll deselect whatever ones that they don't select. Whereas with this one, they can, take, or they're not mutually exclusive. They basically take it or leave it on both of these options right here. So regular optional items will be a checkbox in Quote Valet. Exclusive groups will have a radio button between all of them. Now, one thing you can go a little further with that is groups. You can actually do exclusive options on entire bundles. So if you want to offer your customer an option of bundles, very simple to do that. Let me make a few more lines here. So all right. So select this one, Control G, make it a group, call it bundle 2. And then just to kind of add a little, move these guys down. Okay, that's cool. Okay. So one other cool thing, if you want to kind of have a little better visual just for your sake in Quotewerks, you can highlight lines. So I'm just going to highlight our headers here, and I'll just make them orange. Very bright. So, all right. And let's give these guys some prices. Let's make everything $50. So, to give your customer the option between the 2 bundles, all you got to do is just select just the group headers, open the line attributes, and then just add them to their own exclusive group. And then we're going to upsell bundle 2, just like that. So you see right here.
So in this case, Ryan, you can't select bundle 1 item 1 or bundle 1 item 2. You're just selecting bundle 1 includes everything underneath it. Is that correct?
In this example, yes, but you can also kind of go even further into that and have options within options. but the parent is going to, I mean, generally you wouldn't necessarily do that. You probably would break things out, but you can kind of do that, but the parent is going to dictate it. So if it's a group member, but the bundle header is, or the group header is optional and not selected, then everything within that group is just by default not going to be selected.
Okay.
Yeah. Usually if you do that, you wouldn't do an exclusive group with an exclusive group inside it. Usually you would do like a regular, so like let's say this is a laptop or a desktop, and you have all of these items within it, and it's, you know, you have two different desktops. Desktop 1 has a specific power supply that they can take it, that is only compatible with desktop 1, but desktop 2 has a different power supply that is only compatible with desktop 2, and it's in the group and it's optional. You can do that if you wanted to.
Okay. Now, one thing when I was working in this last week, there's no way to preview this to see if you got it right without uploading it or doing deliver. Is that correct?
Just to kind of see what the customer is seeing, you really would want to upload, but you can upload a quote Valet without even notifying your customer. You can just upload just to preview it, and then
Yeah,
just
that's
kind of
what I
keep it up
did.
there.
I was just hoping there was like a preview button on here for me to say, did I do it right?
I mean, other than the deliver and then going to preview, but it's not going to show you the way that it displays in Quote Valet. You do need to upload to Quote Valet to be able to preview that section. Because yeah, otherwise it's just a matter of, you know, paying attention to the mutually exclusive bundles option, and it just says group header, group member.
Yeah, down at the
So
bottom.
just down here.
All right.
So that can kind of help you, but it's not going to be as good a visual representation as just uploading it to Quote Ballet, but not sending it to your customer yet.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
All right. So back in the line attributes, then we have basically printing options. Actually, I'll just add a blank line here. So here, the next section, so you have your tax code. There's really the two ways you can do it. You can change your tax code right here or select. It's going to say GST and PST. You guys rename that field. So the PST is just going to be your HST or QST field. But the database field is called PST because that's what it originally was before HST became a thing. So, because not everybody uses HST either up in Canada land. As far as I know, at least, I don't know if everyone's switched over to HST or not. But I think there's still a few provinces that use regular.
Yeah, it's still a mix.
I gotcha. Is it just Quebec that does PST, or?
No, it's BC does just PST and a few other provinces. I think Saskatchewan.
Okay.
But I think we have those programmed in. So if we do the quote and we do sold to, shipped to first, then it automatically puts the right taxes in under the documents.
Okay, so you probably have a data link that pulls it in based on that. That's good. That's good. Makes it easy for you.
Yeah. No,
okay.
It does.
So cool. So this is just going to be for the line items. So let's say you're making a line item, because generally when you pull in a line item, this will already be set on that item. But if you were to build a line item, this is where you say what is it taxable by. Hide price. So when you're printing the quote, that line item's price will not show. By default, all your group members already have that set to yes. Hide quantity, same thing. Do you want to show how many of this item your customer is getting, or do you not want to show it? Allow Quote Valet quantity change. So this will allow your customer to change it kind of goes along with the options of giving your customer that interaction to sort of customize their quote for themselves. So they can say, actually, I think I want to buy 20 of those instead of 10. Then they can just, if you say this yes, instead of it just being a static number, there'll be a little text number box that they can change the quantity that they want the item to be. And I'll actually leave that as a yes, so we can see that on the quote. And let me just say, Oop. Fat finger. Okay. Get that cost. Okay. All right. Exclude line will display, so the line might still be displaying, but the cost itself will not actually be included in the grand total. So whatever pricing is in here, it'll still show it, unless you say don't show it by any of these other lines. But exclude line just simply removes that line from the grand total. Print line will hide the line altogether. So sometimes these actually kind of work hand in hand, the exclude line and print line. If you want to keep a line on the quote, but not delete it, but not actually use it, you can set both exclude line to yes and then print line to no. So it'll still be there in case for any reason you need to add something back. You could also have something that is included in the document total, and then write somewhere else such and such is already added to the cost or something like that. Or exclude line could be like a this is the amount not included in final total. Print picture, currently set to no. If there was a picture associated with this product, you can choose whether or not you want it to display. To add a picture to an item, you got a little picture button right here. Select your line, click that button, and then you can select a picture for it to be associated with it. And then that line attribute determines whether or not that picture actually shows up. And then last line attribute is going to be the recurring properties. So if you guys have any recurring services that you're quoting, this is where you go to set a line as recurring. And I will actually go ahead and make a new line to be recurring. So this is going to be $12 a month. So yes, this is recurring. It's monthly. Cycle basis is start of the cycle. And then this right here, if you do recurring products, it's kind of important. By default, Quotewerks is going to break out the monthly recurring cost from the grand total. But if you want that whatever recurring amount to actually be in the grand total, you just need to make sure you check that box. So see right here, recurring monthly, and then it was added to the total. Okay. Any questions on the line attributes?
I want to know something about the recurring.
Yes.
Is it possible to set like 3 month only? Or
yeah, so that would be based on the contract dates of the document. So you would just say like, contract start date would be the start of the recurring. So whenever that is, and then just 3 months later. So let's just say, this starts on Friday.
Well, why are you looking for that, Sylvia? Is that for when people do 3 payments, or?
yes, like separate to, because I know that it can calculate on 3 payment.
Yeah, this is only going to be if you were to actually calculate. It's not going to show a total recurring amount to your customer. It's really more for on your side.
Yeah, I think invoicing will take care of that, right?
Yeah, generally invoicing is going to be something where you actually calculate, and sort of charge that monthly rate. Quotewerks is just showing your customer what the monthly rate is going to be. And you can customize like a formula to, show the total, but it's not really going to show any of that on Quote Ballet by default or on the layout without building a formula to do so. So if y'all aren't already doing it, you're probably not going to need to worry too much about that.
Because
this is really just to show the monthly rate.
Because usually when my customer is asking me for, like, let's say a payment on 3 months, they want me to show it in the code. So I calculate manually, but I was wondering if there is a way to just separate like the cost in 3 times and then just add
I gotcha. Yeah, you'd have to build a formula to do something like that on the layout to display it. Otherwise, yeah, you just calculate it manually and then insert it into like a comment or something like that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay.
Alrighty. Any other questions on line attributes?
No, not for me.
Okay. Awesome. Moving along. Now we get into the line types. So section header, as I was mentioning, so section headers are going to be just a heading with a subtotal built into it. So call this section 1, and we'll call this section 2. It's just for display purposes. A lot of times people will use this just as a breaking out a quote into multiple sections, like if they're like contracting companies or big IT companies that do multiple buildings, they'll do like building 1 will be a section header, building 2 will be a section header, different rooms, things similar to that. You can also use it to kind of separate out if you guys have different categories in the quote, like, you know, this is your software, this is your hardware, and so on. Or, you know, between software packages, like if you do multiple lines for Quotewerks, multiple lines for ACT, you can do a section header for that. And they also kind of work in tandem with subtotals. So if we just add a subtotal here, a subtotal is going to do sort of the opposite of a section header. It's going to add up all the lines above it until it hits either another section header or another subtotal or a section header. So if we were to add up just 2 subtotals here, I mean, there's no lines to add up above it, and there's no lines to go in between here. So delete that, just to kind of show that. So these obviously match because everything is the same in between. Okay. Insert blank line. Inserts a blank line into where we have it selected. Insert comment. Same thing there. Add heading. We showed that. Add product and service is just another way of bringing up the product lookup screen. With product lookups, I don't think you'll have the drop-down box here, but you can search for products up here in the quick lookup. You just select your database that you want to search through, and then just start typing in either a manufacturer part number, vendor part number, or a description. Add formula, we cover that. Percent discount and percent charges. So if you want to add like a discount to the quote, call it, I don't know, 10% discount off of section 1. You just add it there. And then this is where you can add in another subtotal. Sorry, pick that up. And see, it'll add up that amount with the subtotal in there. So you can even say subtotal discount like that. And then running subtotal is just a subtotal based on where it's at in the document. So if we move that down there, instead of it being 1099.80, now it's got all the lines above it, and then so on, based on where it is. Summary line is kind of like a formula line, except it doesn't actually add into your document. This would be if you wanted to summarize, it kind of works like a subtotal, but you basically make a formula of how this number is made, and it can either be based on line items or it can be based on a specific section header. So like if you wanted to recall the amount of section 1, you know, you could make a summary line that refers to that. Section 1 summary. Add another one for section 2. Just like that. Okay. Delete line will remove the line completely from the document. Clear line will just clear out all of the cell contents of the line without completely removing it. Convert to group, I've been pressing that a lot. Just makes a bunch of line items into a bundle. You can hit Control-G. Apply multi-line changes, already covered that. Apply cost modifier or apply price modifier. Will be based on if you have a cost or a list price. So you can have multiple price modifiers that are based on cost, so a markup of cost, margin points on cost. If you have a unit list price, then you can do a discount off of the list price. Or if you just do the list, then it'll just copy over the list price into unit price. All of these are actually marked by a letter. So M will be for markup, so it'll be M30 for a 30% markup. Margin points will be P for points or profit, so P15 for 15 points. Discount will be D, and then L for list. And on the cost modifier, you can only do a discount off of a list price if you have a list price on there. And then the last option in there is the value list. This is what we call the F2 lookup, because you can get to it as well. I don't know if it'll send over. If you press there it goes. You press the F2 key on your keyboard. This is a way of just having, instead of having a drop-down box, it's a pick list of different preset values that you can pull in without having to type everything out. So the last little thing, so that's actually, like I said, that's the entire edit menu. Last little bit here is just going over this little bit. So you have your totals right here. So if you don't have any lines selected, this will be your entire document, but you can also select specific lines. And it'll show you the cost, price, the list, and then the profit for that. If you guys, looks like you all do have commission set, so it'll even show your commission for all that. If you unselect everything, then changes back to totals for all items, and then you see your totals for the entire document. Up here is the grid toolbar. So this right here is the zoom description button. So it's just, if you double click on the description, it'll actually bring up the zoom. So it's just a better way of, if you have a long description, of being able to see so you can type it out. The P will do the edit service properties. A will do the bring up the line attributes menu. This button will do the apply multi-line changes. We have more functionality coming into this, but for right now, this will be the delete zero quantity items. So if your customer on Quote Valet doesn't necessarily accept the quote yet, because you'll have the option of deleting zero quantity on the conversion, but if they update anything to 0 because they don't want it, then you can just do delete zero quantity items and it'll remove those lines from the quote. This button right here, as I showed earlier, is the highlight button, just to make things a little bit easier to see on your document as you're working with it. If you have multiple lines selected, that button will just invert your selection. This is where you go to set those dependent quantities like I showed you with the required items. This button right here is going to be the view or edit product in the database. Refresh item details, so if you made a product change and you need to update prices on an existing quote, click that button. The picture. If you have a quote, when you have a contact pulled into the Sold to Ship to tab, any active quotes that are for that customer brings up that little pane on the right-hand side there. You can see that. And then the undo and redo line item changes button. Down at the bottom here, looks like you guys do require deposit, so this is where you go to set your deposit. Y'all already have a default deposit set, and that's why it's already calculating something, but if you need to make any changes to the way that the deposit is calculated away from full amount, then you can change it to whatever you need it to be. And it can either be a percentage, the full amount, fixed amount, or you can actually specify a calculation on what your customer needs to pay for deposit. And when it comes to Quote Valet, if you're accepting payments through Quote Valet, there are three options that are, or three things that are required to accept payments through Quote Valet. One, you have to have some form of deposit. Two, on the sale info tab, you have to give your customer options to pay by. So if we just did credit card, you need to have something there. And then three, you have to have a payment processor set up, which can't quite go through that right now, but I'm not sure if you guys have been taking payments through Quote Valet or not.
No, we convert it, and then the accounting sends one out from QuickBooks. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So then for right now, it's really just showing your customer what they need to pay in order to move forward with the quote. And that's actually it for the overview. So do we have any questions before we go a little further? I'll upload this to Quote Valet and show you the actual interaction of the workflow.
Quick question. You probably might cover this yet. Is there a spell check in the email? I know there is. I saw you had one here. Okay, that's the biggest thing.
And you can actually have it automatically. So if you go to Tools, My Preferences on the Email tab, there is an auto spell check before sending email if you want it to automatically do it.
Okay, I don't have that on. I've been going crazy.
Yeah, I don't know if Shannon, if you want to have that, we can check that now if you want. Okay.
Please.
Now, one other thing, you actually are, so Shannon, now this is a per user setting, but Shannon, you actually have it set to pull up in Outlook before you send the email. So you can either have it spell check in Quotewerks before you send it to Outlook, or you can just use the Outlook spell check instead.
You can, for now, do both. I will tell you that it takes forever for it to bring up the box for the email window. The very first time I do it, I think subsequent ones it goes a little bit faster. But wait, I go get a cup of coffee and come back before my new Outlook message pops up.
Are you guys using 64-bit or, well, actually, I can check for you since I'm here. I'm curious. If it's 64-bit, that might be a issue because Quotewerks is a 32-bit program, and it doesn't really like to play nice with 64-bit.
You know, I've just done my preferences,
Not sure.
and it doesn't hold it. I keep clicking off auto spell check before sending, but and hit OK, and that doesn't hold it.
You may need to close and reopen. So like click, check it, hit OK.
And then close Quotewerks?
Yeah, close Quotewerks and reopen. I wonder if it sticks for you, Shannon.
I went off too. I wonder if it's because we have Outlook selected.
I don't have. Mine never goes to Outlook. I always just have it.
We'll look into
Mine
that.
never works. Mine never works. I just copy the text and send it through Outlook. That's what I'm doing.
Okay. Well, we can look into that. That's more of a technical issue, and I don't want to, kill our time here worrying about that. But we'll still kind of try to push through this. So, I mean, do we have any other questions, like functionality-wise, or like usage of Quotewerks?
I was wondering if it's possible to have a discount with a fixed amount instead of percentage.
Yeah, you could just make a blank line.
And then just minus?
Just negative amount, yeah. Just
Okay, that's what I did, but I thought there was just like a discount, right-click in discount with a fixed amount instead of copying the same item and then minus the item.
So there's something like a $5 off coupon. Yeah, you just do negative 5.
Okay.
And then we can do another subtotal. Oh, well, it's not quite going to work for that. We would do a running subtotal from there. Like that.
Okay.
Anything else?
Not for me.
No, not for me either. That's good.
Good.
Okay, cool. So let's actually start working with this. So since we have already pulled in Shannon, you're going to be our customer. So we're going to go ahead.
Let me get Sean's credit card on file first.
We'll pretend that you do, and then just go ahead and let's create an opportunity. So to do that, all you got to do is just have a customer pulled into the quote. And one other cool thing, just to show right here, I mean, this just isn't linked, but if you wanted to create a customer in Acts, you can do that from Quotewerks just by inputting enough information for that little yellow star to highlight. And if you just click that button, it'll create that new company and or customer in Act directly from Quotewerks. I'm not sure if you would typically find yourself doing that. A lot of people will start in Act first, but Just
yeah,
in
no,
case.
I think we always start in Act, yeah, but that's
Okay.
good to know.
Yeah, just something that's there. So let's go ahead and hit save. So this brings up our window to save to both Quotewerks and Act. Main thing you want to do is just make sure this little box right here is checked to create a sales opportunity. If you need to create a follow-up call, meeting, or to-do, you can check any of these boxes here. You'll get additional options. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just going to focus on the opportunity. So you have your document name. This is your opportunity to change the name when you are saving. As of right now, it's just going to be your sold to company name and then today's date, but you can erase this here and then change it to be whatever you want it to be. It's going to use the next available document number, and then the status is going to be open. So we'll click OK. And it's going to start talking to Act. Hopefully.
Well, it worked earlier.
There you go. Just a little sluggish here, but here we go. So if you have an existing Act opportunity, like if you had created one before making this quote, there can only be one quote attached to an opportunity. But if you created an op before making the quote, you can find it here. It'll be just whatever is on the contact there. So right now we're just going to be creating a new opportunity. Here is the opportunity name that's automatically generated. You can change it here if you need to before moving forward. The record manager, your process, and your stage. You can set all that here. Probability, estimated close date. Make a new note. Select a competitor if needed. If all that's good, you're just going to click OK. Let it do its thing. And to show you something cool. Well, maybe not. No, I guess not wanting to pull up the links. So we'll go to, actually, let me close that because I should have linked over. I guess it's not going to link like that. Okay, that's fine. We go over to Act, find you, and go to Opportunities. And here we are. There we go. So it's just sending over the products there. See all that fun stuff. So here's your opportunity that we just made directly from Quotewerks. So now we have the opportunity created. Now we're ready to send this off to our customer. So we're going to go to the deliver window because we're delivering it to our customer. First, you're going to select a PDF layout. Do y'all have a standard that you use?
James told me to use the fourth one down that just said.
Yeah.
The fourth one down, this one we use. That's
Yeah.
This one right here? Okay.
Yeah.
To make things easy, this is a per user thing, but for Shannon at least, I'm going to right click that layout and say select default. So this will by default be selected whenever you create a quote. You don't have to select it every time.
Just while we're here then, Ryan, so it looks like you can select these and hit delete if we wanted to clean some of this up too, if there's things in here we're not going to use. Okay.
Yeah, if you do not want to use layouts, you can either delete them or they're actually located in your Quotewerks folder. If you don't necessarily want to delete them, but you want to get rid of them from that window, you can actually just go to Help, About, and then on the System tab, click your install path to easily get to your Quotewerks folder. All of those layouts are located in here. So if you just wanted to maybe move them out of the folder, once they're no longer in that layouts folder, they'll no longer show up here. And
so we can make a backup folder or something and move them over.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Is it the same for the item product as well?
No. No,
okay.
it's very different for items because those are a database. These are flat files. So if you just move the file out of the layout folder, and here's your file name so you can match layout to file names. You just move them out of the folder. Then when you open Quotewerks back up, they won't be there anymore. And I'll try to get to your products question. Just keep a pin in that, and we'll try to get to that when we can. So we're going to select our layout. Click preview just to make sure the PDF looks okay. You'll see how it looks. So this is just how it's going to look PDF wise. So you have your section header. Don't really have anything calling different lines out. So a little bit jumbled up. So I don't know if you'll use all those things or not. But just making sure everything looks okay here. So that's good. We're ready to send it off to Quote Valet. Now you won't be able to send to Quote Valet if your customer does not have an email. You do have an email, so we can move forward. Okay, so it made another PDF file that's now in the Links tab. Step number 2 is the reminder options. So these right here are unchecked by default. So if you need to turn on the auto reminders, you just need to go here and then select whichever one you need, whatever ones you need to turn on. I'm going to leave them off for now because if any of those are checked, the second you hit the upload button, those timers start. So primarily is the not viewed within a certain amount of days. So let's say you're working on a quote for a customer and not quite ready to send it out. It might take you a little bit, maybe over the weekend, just to get everything finalized to be able to send out to them. If you send it out to them on, or upload it to Quote Ballet on a Friday, 2 days later, even though you haven't sent it to them, they're going to get an email saying, hey, you haven't viewed this quote because you had this box checked when you clicked upload. So having these unchecked by default tends to be advisable, but you can actually set a default for them to be checked under Tools Options in the Quote Ballet setup.
So can you, if in your scenario that you just gave, if we worked on it on Friday but weren't quite done, and on Monday we decided to do it, do we get prompted with this again then because we made changes to it and we uploaded it back up, then we change it then? Or how can we get those reminders to go?
You every time you click on upload to Quote Ballet, you can click this button and then start the reminders.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. So we're going to keep those off. So if you guys do have multiple Quote Valet templates, Keystroke is just set as your default. If you need to change that for any reason, this is where you go to change your Quote Valet template. I'll leave that the same. Then you click upload. We have the box checked to auto preview, so it's going to open up in default web browser, and here we go. So I guess I selected multiple items. So here's what I was talking about. So these are all of our line items that we just put in there. So we have our group up here. You see the price is hidden for all the group members. You just see the total price up here. For the lines that are just strictly optional, you get a checkbox where they can take them or leave them. And next to them where it says change my quantity, we're going to get 3 of these. So this is basically the point. I mean, I'm just going to, normally you wouldn't go through and edit this when you're previewing it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just showing you the Quote Ballet page for now. So down here is where I was talking about, where you have the group bundles that they can choose between. So they're just groups on our quote, but right here is where you can see where the customer actually chooses between them two. And then right here, I guess this was set to have a quantity change. This is where they go to just, choose between the different warranties. So whenever a customer makes a change on this, they're going to get the update totals button just to, before they can even accept that they have to update their totals here. So I'm going to just close out of this. Actually, no, I'll just minimize it because we're going to come back to it. So web page looks good. Ready to send it off to the customer. Click send email. Going to pull in their email address and then use your email address as the from. You're going to click send. I'm not going to send this just right now, just to kind of keep the spam down. But yeah, so you send it off to your customer. They get this email. They're going to have that link to click. Whenever they click that link in your email, you're going to get an email notification saying that they have viewed the quote for the upteenth time.
Yep.
So then the ball is in their court. We're going to just be waiting on the customer, and then if you sent it off with the reminders, then those are kind of in place to let them know, hey, you need to accept this quote. So anytime they make any changes on the quote with changing optional items, changing quantities or whatnot, like we were just doing, whenever you either open the quote and it's going to check the Quote Ballet server for any changes, as well as if you just had the quote open and you click the Quote Ballet tab, it'll check there just like it did now. So once we click OK, it's going to actually, I'll go back over to the document. We don't need to update ACT right now. So right here, see it took our changes. They didn't want the warranty, and so on. So this is the Quote Valet tab. So you can view the customer-facing page that we have open down here easily just by going here. Resend the email if they say they didn't get it for some reason. Copy the URL if you need to send it to them by any other means, like maybe another email. Recall the quote. We'll pull it down from Quote Ballet, but not completely delete the record. It just basically doesn't let, if they try following the link, when you click recall the quote, you can actually give them a message that they'll get whenever they try following the link again. And then deleting from Quote Ballet will completely remove it so the link doesn't work anymore. So let's say the customer is good to go. What they're going to do is they're going to go say, okay, yep, this is what I want. So they're going to accept it. They're going to sign their name here, any comments that they need to, and click accept. And you know what? That's why you guys didn't have any payment options, because it's not displayed on there. So let me remove these.
Brian wants us to hang out with him after hours here. He's going to pay us $25 to do it. I'm in. I'll go without air, but it has to be in the winter.
Quick re-upload to Quote Ballet and quick preview. The little arrow, yellow arrow right there. Okay, so now I should be able to accept.
Open the window.
There we go. There you go. Thank you for accepting a quote. So you should.
You couldn't do it before because it was requiring a credit card or something. Is that why?
It was requiring the customer to select a payment option.
Oh, okay, okay.
That's it. Yep.
Okay, so and this might be a question for Vic and Sylvia, just from a process. If somebody, Ken says we have to like clean up our opportunities and stuff that are more than 60 days old. Do we do anything with those quotes within Quotewerks to say they're like inactive, or do they just stay there, or what's the normal protocol for that?
So generally with a quote, that's, it depends on the situation for each quote. If you have old quotes that you need to get rid of for some reason, then, I didn't mean to click that. In Quotewerks, you'll want to either convert it to an order if it was one, to basically say that it's one and close the opportunity and act, or you need to do a file convert to lost sale. If it's like if it's expired, then it's just expired, and that's kind of fine. But if you still need to close it out as a follow-up, you do convert to lost sale to say the customer never went forward with it.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm not sure if that answers your question.
No,
I had
I think
a little bit
does.
background noise behind me.
No worries.
Okay. So as you saw, you did get that email.
Uh-huh.
So because you're also the customer, your customer is going to get a thank you for your order. But yeah, so this is what you actually get when your customer accepts a quote through Quote Ballet. You're going to have this acceptance package, which is actually, to make things legally binding, a screenshot of the quote of the page, a little box checked right here that says your customers said that they accepted everything up here. And then you'll also have a PDF of the original quote that you sent them. And that's part of the acceptance package there. So you got the notification, open it back up in Quotewerks, then it's going to say, hey, this was accepted. And if you had your sound on, I don't know if you heard it, there's a little cha-ching sound that comes through whenever you have a one quote to say, yeah, you guys got some money coming in. So this is what you'll be prompted with. Do you want to convert it to an order? You would just say, okay.
I think what we've been doing, Shannon, on those, when the email comes in saying they've accepted, we just forward it. We close the quote and forward it to James Paulus.
Okay.
So if you go through the acceptance process, this is what you're actually doing. You're closing the act opportunity as one. So reason, accepted quote, whatever stage you need to set it to, and then hit OK. And now Is there a refresh button? I'm not seeing it from my end here.
Under View,
F5.
right at the bottom, or F5, yeah, right at the bottom.
Oh, see, I wasn't sure if F5 was going to work or not. But yeah, there we go. Probability 100, close 1. Ta-da.
Woohoo.
And that's really it. That's now it just kind of goes into your invoicing process, and that's the workflow really. So you just pull in your customer, build your quote here, deliver it, upload a quote Ballet. Your customer sees it, accepts it. You open it up, get the cha-ching, convert to an order, and it wins in Act. And then y'all move forward with whatever the rest y'all do.
All right. So they had asked about how to clean up some products. Do you have a few minutes that you can kind of give
Yeah.
us an overview of how to do that?
Yeah, we still have a little bit of time left. Yeah, absolutely. So what did you guys want to do with your products?
Well, some of them are old. There were specials 2 years ago, and they're still sitting there.
Okay.
That
So you
wasn't
just want to
what I
delete
was
them, or?
wondering. Like, we cannot like have like a folder for archives, like, or like we don't show these item.
Oh, it's like, is there a way to hide them that are old?
Item. Or...
Example,
not-
when you see the Pro
Yeah, go ahead.
V16, 17, 17 there in the middle of the screen, those are all, I mean, that's a long time ago, any of those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I gotcha. So there's two things you can do. I mean, there isn't anything like a hide item or make an item inactive. You can make a folder and then put them in the inactive folder, or you can just delete the items themselves.
I think
It's
we'll
kind
just
of
start
one of the
deleting
two. Yeah. So yeah. Then you can just select. I mean, whatever search criteria you want to do. So like, let's say contains V16 because Act 16 is very old. You can also do an or. So V16 or V17. So there you go. You just select all of these and you can right click and then say delete.
Perfect.
Now, is there a way that these are sorted? Do we have a way to, outside of, when it displays all, are they sorted by a certain way? Oh, it says sort by manufacturer.
You can sort by either manufacturer, I mean, really whatever fields you want to through here. I mean, you can also just click the column headers.
Yeah.
Now, there is an easier way that you could do a product database cleanup, and that's through an export and then an import. You can export all of your products to a CSV file just by right-clicking. So under the product setup product sources, right-click and then go to export. And then send it out. Well, it'll be a tab delimited text file, but you can open that up in Microsoft Excel, make whatever changes and delete whatever rows you need to get rid of from there, and then you can go back to products and do an import wizard, and select your fixed up file. At the very end of the import wizard, you select what database you want to bring that price sheet into, and there's an option to just delete everything in that database and then re-import whatever is in your file as a quicker way to kind of do that. Otherwise, yeah, you can just go through and just delete manually.
Okay, so the only thing that I could, and again, I know that all those are really old. So, but because if there was something that was old, that there was a link still available to somebody, because it's already up in quote Valet, it would still show properly there because it's already been pushed up there. We just wouldn't be able to recreate the quote within Quotewerks with that item number because we no longer have it right now. Is that correct?
Right, because like I said,
downside of deleting it. So
yeah, I mean, like I said, so your products that are in the database are in a completely separate area than the products that are on your quotes. So a product could be deleted, gone completely from your database, but if you quoted a customer that 3 years ago, that quote that you still have is still going to have it on there because it's a completely different table.
All right, sorry I missed that. Okay, thank you.
That's fine. Yeah, no problem.
So how can you create a folder? Like if I want to create like inactive folder.
Why do you want to keep like the old ones like V17 all the way up to V20, even 22? We're not selling anymore and we never will sell. So why aren't we just deleting them, Sylvia? Like why do we need to keep those?
I just want to put all the French one because sometimes there's description that it's not in the new one. So I want to have like a keep the description of the old one. I'm not sure if
Okay.
you. And then
Yep.
I want to just put all the old French document to this folder, and then like if I have to go back and check the description, because I don't know, sometimes some user like they delete one of my item and then it's gone, so I have at least the previous version and it has almost the same description, so I can put it back here.
Okay.
I don't know, it's mine. I have
Yeah.
come like a lot of problem with that, and I just want to keep the old pricing or something else also, and
So
all,
that's
and
what
keep
that's what I was getting
the
at. So
main
basically,
item
you're gonna find when things
on the French description. Just
Yeah.
create like a folder.
created Connect-wise, it is
So the way that you would do that, just right click the header up here, so your database, hit new, because you're making a new folder name. So
Okay, I'm just going to jump off now. Because I got another meeting at 4 that I got to do a little bit of prep for. So
Okay.
You guys can
No
keep
problem.
going. So thank you very much. That was wonderful.
We're almost done here. No problem, Victor. My pleasure. You have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.
Yep. So Sylvia, just right-click the database that you want to build your folder in, and then just type it in. And then to move products into that. So let's just do like just from what we can see here. All you're doing is just associating. So right now, when you, by default, it's just going to show you everything that's in the database. So they're still going to show up in here, but you can also just associate these products with the inactive folder.
Okay.
So even though they show up here, you can also just go to inactive, and then they'll show up there.
But
so it doesn't. Yeah, they still show in here. So I don't know if you maybe want to make some sort of tag so that way maybe they sort differently.
That doesn't help.
Yeah. No, I know. I was gonna say I know what you were looking for. You were looking to make an item inactive, and there's not a way of actually doing that within the Quotewerks database. You can delete it or move it to a different folder, or you could make a different database and call it like inactive products, and then copy the items to that database, then delete them from the active database. That's another way of doing it.
But you will have to create a new database.
Yes. Yes. I'm just thinking of different ways that I have seen it done. You know.
Okay. And you said we can export the product to Excel. Maybe I can.
You can. Yeah, you could just do that, and that's under products, set up product sources, and then just right click. So for the French descriptions, right click, export.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
Right. I mean, there's
all right.
And then, Ryan, one last question then.
Yeah.
How is this backed up so that if we do decide we're going to clean up all those products and we screw something up?
That's the thing. I'm scared. That's why.
I know.
Let's see. You guys are on an SQL backend, so who manages your SQL database?
It's probably Jason.
Make sure that Jason makes a full backup of your SQL server.
Okay.
Or at least of the product tables, and then if you need to restore those, you can. But yeah, more than likely, I would imagine y'all probably already have a backup
going on,
schedule. Yeah. So just confirm before. I would confirm what it is before going through and doing that, just to make sure you can do an easy rollback.
Okay.
And then yeah.
Yeah, it's just there's 200 items in there, and I mean, we probably only need at most 50 of them, so it'd be nice to clean that up.
Well, I mean, if it's
go ahead.
Sorry. Well, yeah, if you do an export of the database, then that's kind of another way of doing a backup, is just exporting it to an Excel file, keeping that, and then if something goes wrong, then you can just do a re-import, delete, and then do a delete and import, so that way it just replaces whatever is there with, what you exported previously.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I just think we're all tentative because none of us are experts, and we're like, oh, don't want to mess it up.
I gotcha. I gotcha.
Well, so appreciate your time today, and thanks for letting all of us join. That was That was nice.
Absolutely.
Pressure too. So
Any other
Sylvia,
questions
you good?
before?
I did the export and it shows like a notepad. I'm not sure.
You have to bring it. You'll have to. It saves it as a TXT file. Sylvia, you got to open it
Yeah.
up like through Excel. Say if it
Oh,
didn't.
okay.
Your system's
Yep.
defaulted to do a TXT to Notepad. So you can
Yeah.
open up Excel and then path to where it saved that file and open it up in Excel.
Okay.
Yep.
And I can help you with that if you need help.
Okay.
All right, Ryan.
All
Thank
right
you
then.
so much. I appreciate
Yep,
it.
it's my pleasure. Well, like I said, this meeting has been recorded. So Shannon, I'll actually, because I think you're the one that's on
Yep, I
the
am.
meeting,
Mhm.
so I will send you, once it processes, I'll send you the recording of this whole meeting. If you have any questions that come up, because as you get, start getting into this, I'm sure plenty are going to come up. There's two ways you can reach us. Like I showed you earlier on our website, you can go to help and then technical support to see your options of reaching out to us. We don't really recommend calling for just how-to information. You can just shoot us an email, support@quotewerks.com, and we get to that. I mean, yeah, within 24 hours, like it says there,
Okay.
we're generally pretty responsive and can get to you, within the same day, unless you send it at like 5 o'clock Eastern. Yeah, so shoot us an email for kind of questions. But if you do run into any more problems, like if you're still having problems emailing, or you get any error messages, yeah, just give us a call, 407-248-1481. It's option 3, I believe, for tech support. And we're in the same time zone, so 9 to 5, Monday through
Okay.
Friday.
All right. And
all
then
right.
do we have, what kind of support plan do we have with you?
So
Brian?
you guys are Quotewerks resellers, so you don't really have to worry about voice support minutes. I mean, as
Okay.
a reseller, I wouldn't abuse that, but so normally when a customer purchases Quotewerks, they actually get 45 minutes of voice support, and just as you call in, that just goes down. Those minutes never expire. This is good for, since you are selling it, just so that they know if they need to call us directly, they can. Minutes never expire, and we sell them at $1 per minute in 30-minute blocks. So
Okay,
even though
that's
you
fine. I
are a
just didn't know if
reseller,
I needed to get approval before I called in if something
oh
was
yeah,
up.
no,
Okay.
anybody can call us. So you don't have to like have a designated person call us. You can call us yourself if something's broken. Just say you're calling from Keystroke Quality Computing, and we'll pull you right up. Just we like to, not only do we keep track of minutes on accounts, but we also write notes in case you have, other people have the same issue, or you had this issue in the past. Maybe we fixed it for you, something specific, whatever.
Okay.
Always good to log your calls. So.
All right. Well, thank you again.
Alrighty. Yep,
All right.
my
Bye.
pleasure. You have a good one. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.